Activate your energy.
Welcome to the Activated Authors Podcast, a show where we distill the core principles of what it takes to become a happy, healthy, and productive author, no matter what stage of the journey you're at. I'm your host, Daniel Wilcox. I'm an international best-selling author, as well as an author coach, speaker, and creative entrepreneur. But most importantly, I'm a lifelong student of all things productivity, psychology, and human behavior. Thank you for joining me for today's episode. Without further ado, let's dive in. What is up, activators, and welcome to another episode of the Activated Authors Podcast. Today, I am thrilled to be joined by the amazing Philip Duncan. Philip Duncan is an award-winning and best-selling self-published author. His debut novel, Blood Ties, won the gold medal for military thrillers at the 2022 Global Book Awards for self-publishing. Philip was born and raised in East Tennessee, where he still lives. Interestingly, side note, first time I ever read that word, I thought it was Tennessee. Since the age of 16, he has had many jobs, including landscaping, farming, farmhand, deli clerk, and personal trainer, but writing has always been his genuine passion. He currently writes fast-paced thrillers where he aims to keep his readers on the edge of their seats, not knowing what's coming next. He's very much a pantser with his books and enjoys letting the characters he creates dictate where the story goes. When Philip's not writing his next book, you can find him coaching other authors, working out, and spending time with his beautiful wife and 2 kids. Philip, welcome to the show.
What's up, man? Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
No worries. I'm excited to chat to you. Just a note for listeners, I do have a little one on half term this week. So if there are any odd, strange noises in the background, that'll be why. But now that that's to the point, I just want to say hello. And so I came into your sphere of being, Philip, a couple of weeks ago. Obviously, we had a bit of a chat for some of the stuff that you're doing. And I do feel like there are quite a lot of sort of parallels in the terms of how we think and how we approach different books, which I'm going to dive into in a little bit. But how I wanted to start this interview was actually a little comment that I picked up on one of your websites, which was that you are a big fan of The Office. And I just wondered, what is it about The Office that grabs you, and why is it that you've watched it for at least 100 times?
Yeah, I apologize. I like the US Office, not the UK Office.
I was also going to
knock on the UK. I don't think the UK Office made it past the first season. So, dude, I don't know, but it is like, I feel like it's a part of my life. I don't know. I think it's so funny and engaging. I got shirts, I've got mugs, at least 10 times during the day, I can relate an Office reference, and it drives my wife crazy. I don't know. I just think it's one of those shows that I can sit down and watch that like helps me escape and unwind and stuff like that. And it's just, man, I love it. It's so funny.
How did you come into the sphere of The Office? What was your first, how did you find out about it and have that first watching experience?
Yeah, it's crazy because I remember people talking about it in high school, and I was like, they try to explain it. I was like, that doesn't sound funny, like whatever. So never even thought about it. And then like probably 2 or 3 years ago, my buddy finally got me to watch it. And the first few episodes were kind of slow. And I'm like, it's okay. But then second season through the end, like I think I watched the whole thing in like 2 weeks. And then I kid you not, I've probably watched it all the way through 20 times. Yeah. And there's a lot of episodes.
That's dedication for you. Yeah, no,
it is.
I feel bad now because I'm one of those people that I've tried to watch it, and I think that first season just stalled me a bit. And I've heard so many people go on about it's just break through to the second season, then it kind of like explodes. But I think it's that curse at the minute of there are so many things to watch, so it's like finding the time to watch them all. But when you find that nugget, when you find that thing that's yours, for me at the minute, that's Parks and Recreation.
I'm watching it again. I've seen that 10, 20 times. I'm watching it right now. I love that show.
So good.
It's so funny.
Yeah. But let's go into a little bit about yourself and your writing journey. Are you happy to give my listeners a little overview on how you got into writing, kind of where you went along the way and how you got to where you are today?
Yeah. So, I don't know if I didn't stumble into it, but for people that have followed me and heard my story, I kind of struggled trying to find my purpose and calling in this life. Like I was working these dead-end jobs. I got stuck in a 9-to-5 for like 7 years, no growth, it was just miserable. And I was trying to find something that got me excited, and I wanted to get out of bed in the morning. So, my wife and my dad tell me all the time, they're like, you can't just keep throwing stuff against the wall and wait for something to stick. Cause I was trying everything. It was trying to find my purpose, but also trying to make money for my family. So I was trying to find something. So I was selling insurance. I was writing blog articles for a finance company. Like I was doing anything and everything I could, but none of it really hit. And it was just, I didn't really feel excited about anything. And then I ended up coming across Mark Dawson's self-publishing 101 course, who, I mean, if anybody's in self-publishing, it's like, good luck trying to make a course about self-publishing if Mark Dawson's selling his course, because it's just like, it's incredible. So that actually got me interested into like starting to get into writing. But I was like, well, what do I want to write? So I wrote a children's book first. And then once I got to the illustrations, I stopped because I was like, okay, I didn't want to put the time in to figure out illustrations and finding somebody and stuff like that. So then I was like, okay, so what do I like to read? I was like, I like to read thrillers. So I was like, let me try writing a thriller. And I just sat down one day and I just started writing. And then it's like, now I open my eyes and here I am. Like, it's almost like it doesn't feel real. It's like you decide to do something, you go all in, and then it just kind of unfolds.
I love that phrase, all in. I think that's something we'll definitely jump back to. But you spoke about, trying all these different things to try and find your purpose. I think that's something that a lot of people really, really struggle with. And, even if you believe that your purpose is writing, you then have that age-old question of, well, yeah, writing what? So as you were going along that journey, how did you approach trying to find your purpose? Because, from my experience, other than trying lots of different things, it's very, very difficult to try and find the thing that strikes a chord with you.
Yeah, it is. And I think really just trial and error for a lot of people. I mean, if you're lucky enough to find it right off the bat, that's amazing. That's awesome. But that wasn't my case. But I guess writing for me, I always enjoyed writing. So kind of like in the back of my mind, it's always kind of been there. You know, I did well like writing English papers and, reports and stuff like that. I've always enjoyed it, but I've never written for, now when I write thrillers and self-publish and stuff like that. But it's like when I sit down and write, it's almost like watching The Office. Like, it helps me. I'm almost escaping into this other world, and I get to it's almost like relieving all this stress, which by no means is self-publishing not stressful, because it is. But like when I sit down and write, I don't know. It's something. It did something for me. Like, it hit this switch inside me that was just like almost instantly. I was like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing with my time, and I have not looked back.
And I in no means mean that writing is easy, but I wonder if this reflects on you as well. But there's definitely a sense of a lot of the stuff that I do where it feels easy, so it feels like it shouldn't be work. I don't know if that was like similar experience to when you actually got into the writing and then started moving along. That kind of just almost like the wind is no longer against you and it's working with you.
Yeah, you definitely build that momentum, and it's like, I think that's where like routine and finding what works for you is so key. But yeah, there are times, you're right, writing is not easy, doing this is not easy, but it's doable, and people do it all the time. But you get that momentum and kind of, I don't know, you get in your rhythm and routine. It does feel like you're kind of moving forward effortlessly, which helps. You'll always hit those stalls and those points of like writer's block and, struggling getting the words down the next, one day, or whatever it is. But yeah, I think kind of the more you do it, it's kind of like honing your craft every day. I do think it helps make it an easier process, even though it's not easy by any means.
Not at all. Not at all. So what was it that brought you to the Mark Dawson course? I think you said you stumbled across it. And what was some of the early lessons that you learned from taking that course? Because I agree, it's a fantastic resource to give you everything you need to learn about self-publishing. But even so, that, having access to that amount of content can sometimes be overwhelming for authors. So is there anything specific that, kind of buoyed you along and helped you get started in writing?
Yeah, it's definitely overwhelming because it's like his videos are very in-depth and all-encompassing and detailed and stuff like that. But the one that really hit me, so I've bought his 101 course, his marketing course, his launch course, and then Susie Quinn, who I've actually had the honor and pleasure to interview. She has a how to write a bestseller course, and I took that. I was like, I mean, literally from start to finish. And the second I finished her course, I went to my desk and started writing, because listening to her course and how she broke things down, because, when you first get started, you get stuck. You're like, well, where do I start? How do you even write that first word? Like, you stare at that blank page you've never started before. It's like, what, like, I'm supposed to write 70,000 words. I can't even write the first sentence. Like, taking her course helped provide clarity and some like motivation and momentum for me. So I would say her bestseller course alone is what finally pushed me to start. But Mark Dawson's course of like the importance of having an author website, the importance of growing your email list, giving I didn't even know what a reader magnet was. I've never heard of that. You heard lead magnets, but we're talking reader magnets. It's the same thing, but in the authoring world, and stuff like that. And then all the resources and tools that he provides and shows for people getting started who don't know things out there, like Story Origin, Book Funnel, Pro Writing Aid, like all these different cover designers and stuff like that. Just really helped me kind of focus in on what I was trying to do and gave me clarity. And I don't know how I found him. I do not know how I found his course. I had no idea. Still can't figure it out, but I did. And he has a lot of my money.
Just serendipity, and he has a lot of my money too. Yeah. And it's well worth it, especially for those resources. And if anyone's listening to this who is looking at taking that step in, it's just it's a fantastic place to start. I think it's a scary thing as well, investing that amount of money in yourself. But I don't know how you'd kind of progress any other way apart from putting that money in. When you first started writing, you mentioned obviously you kind of like stumbled into all of this. How did you approach the actual building the habit and building the routine of getting the words on the page and getting started? Because for many people, that is really the hardest part, is carving that time out and really beginning that habit. So what was that process like for you?
Yeah, so for me, and this is probably most people, but I was working a full-time job, so I had to find time outside of work. 9 to 5, I worked a typical 9 to 5. So I also had a wife, a daughter at the time, and then she was pregnant with our second kid. So there wasn't a lot of time for me to focus, like selfishly take time to myself. So it's like I couldn't come straight home from work and start doing it because I wanted to spend time with my kids and my wife. And then, so I did 2 things. I balanced between getting up in the mornings. So I would get up at 5 a.m. and try to knock out like an hour and a half of writing. And then if I couldn't do that, I would come home, and when everybody was in bed and relaxing, I would go down to my basement around like 8 or 9 o'clock at night and get the words in then. And it was every day. And it was, you just building that habit. You have to find what works for you and then try to stick to it as best you can. And you could change and adapt. But I think really for people who are like full-time jobs, still trying to do this, routine is so important because words need to get on the page or it will not get done.
What about those days when the words were tough to get to? Did you give yourself a break on those days, or was it a case of very diligently smashing through and just keeping up that habit?
Yeah, since I was new to it, I tried to kind of push through because I was so eager and excited to get it done. Because I kind of surprised myself, and I didn't realize that I was kind of stuck in the idea of like your book had to be a certain word count, and then it was going to take like a year to get your book published. And then it's like I figured out that wasn't so much the case. Like you could basically publish your book as fast as you want when you self-publish. So I would push through. And sometimes I would struggle to get like 500 words on a page. It was just like trudging through like quicksand. It was like felt impossible. But now I usually kind of take a step back because my situation is a little different now. So I allow myself to kind of step back and clear my mind. And then if that doesn't work, I'll kind of go back to a part in my story and read down to where I am now and hope that gets kind of the creative juices flowing and kind of my mind back on track for where to take the story next.
And so we mentioned in the bio about the fact that you work out, you're no stranger sort of hitting the gym and building that sort of habit. Did that play into the writing side as well? Was there sort of correlation there, or did the working out come after you started writing?
Oh, exercise. I love working out. Yeah, I've always done that. It's been since I've played baseball my whole life. Exercise and athletic events and stuff had always been the case. So when we lived at my old house, I actually had like my desk was here where I wrote, and I had my gym behind me. So
I love it.
I had my gym in my house. So there was literally no excuse not to work out because I didn't have to drive anywhere. But yeah, I think exercise in general is such a huge key for mental health, physical health, emotional health, spiritual health, like whatever it is. I think it gives that, it'll help you. And honestly, it'll kind of help you with whatever you're trying to do because you'll have more energy, you'll feel better. Sometimes it helps clear your mind because you've got music or you're listening to a podcast and you're lifting weights or you're running or whatever it is. So I absolutely make sure exercise is a huge part of my like daily routine, even now.
So I guess this is slightly tangential, but also in line with writing as well. But, we all know that exercise is helpful for that kind of stuff. Like I know that if I'm stuck or want to get energized, I'll go for a walk, or I'll kind of go for a run or something just to get the blood flowing and to, you know, get the mind awake. Why do you think so many people don't incorporate that regular exercise routine into their schedule when they know it's something that will help them feel better and will help them produce more and to be more creative? What is it that stops people from doing that, do you think?
Well, I think like anything, it's I don't have the time. Like people, that drives me crazy. And I get it. Trust me, you might be the busiest person in the world. I understand. But if you look at the most successful people in the world, entrepreneurs, business owners, these Fortune 5, like these just business magnets, like you listen to every single one of the routines, they all incorporate exercise. So I'm thinking if that person can run a company or multiple companies and do what they do, and they still have time to exercise, I don't have time isn't an excuse. And I'm not taking somebody's busy life. Like I'm not like trying to put it down or take shots at it or anything. But I think when something's a priority and you make the mental shift to make it a priority, I think time doesn't become a factor. You will find what works. You have to get up in the morning, you do it on your lunch break, or you do it in the evening. And I just think it needs to be a part of everybody's routine, and I don't have time is not a valid excuse.
It's similar with writing as well. You get a lot of the I don't have time. And whenever people say that to me, it's similar to what you said. It's, you know, what are your priorities? Because I mean, we should all accept the fact that there's not enough time in the day to do everything. But if, you know, if you're constantly going on about how important something is to you and how much you want to do it, then you can find the time. It just might mean, you know, taking out something that is a little bit less of a priority to put in the stuff that you want. And that's not saying like you could never watch Netflix or do any of that stuff, but at the same time, like maybe watch a little less or spend a little less time on phones. And I speak of that from like the position of, you know, someone that battles with that constantly. How do you kind of swing a little bit back to the habit thing with the writing as well, but gym wise, routine wise, all that kind of stuff? Do you have any sort of particular tips or tricks for the days when it is difficult to stay in the regular rhythm of the stuff that you want to do?
Yeah, for me, what I've found to be huge is you need to, the night before, you need to write down what you need to do the next day. And it needs to start with what's the most important thing that's going to move your business or authoring career forward the fastest. And that's what you focus on first. And then you kind of delegate down. You know, getting it written down the night before will go ahead and get your mental shift into what the next day is going to bring. So you don't have to spend the mental energy when you wake up or you're scrambling through, you're like, oh, I got to do that. I got to do that. I got to do that. You're checking your email and you're trying to write. And then you're like, you're doing these 10 things at once and nothing gets done. You do 10 things that get 60% of the way done and nothing gets finished. So it's like, if you can write your priorities down and just kind of block your time out hour by hour, however you want to do it. I'm going to wake up at this time. I'm going to, you know, meditate and read this time. I'm going to exercise. I'm going to write. Then I'm going to work on emails. I'm going to, you know, do my course, like whatever it is you're doing, like you need to schedule it the night before and get it in your mind and ready. And then the next day, you make sure you stick to it and don't try your best not to let yourself get distracted with your phone or a show or, you know, whatever it is that comes up, because I think the less mental energy you can spend figuring out what to do, you'll have that mental energy to actually do what you need to do.
I love that. And it's amazing, like you say, how many of these universal truths echo back the more you speak to people. Like you always expect, for whatever reason, a different answer, and it always boils back to the same fundamental principles. It just rocks my mind. So you wrote the award-winning book, Blood Ties, after following through Mark Dawson's self-publishing formula, going through all that kind of stuff. Talk to me about the launch of Blood Ties before the awards and how you felt putting that book out on the market. Was it to a roaring success, as many people expect, or, you know, what were the expectations going in and what was the reality of launching that book?
Yeah, super scary, by the way. For anybody who hasn't published a book, it's like, I try to explain it to people, like my family, my wife. It's like, it's almost like you're running naked through Times Square at peak hour. Like it's so, to me, it's so like, you're putting your heart and soul, you put your heart and soul into something, whatever book it is that you write, and then you're about to put it out to the world to be criticized, loved, hated, reviewed. You know, people send you I've had people send me emails and comments that's like, what did I do to you? Like, all I did was put a book out and you're acting like I came and took your child. I don't understand. So it's like, it is very nerve wracking. Doing it the first time, I think it's important just to do it and get it out. I tried to do it the best I could, but obviously you learn things now that you didn't before. And I was kind of really passionate of getting it out as fast as I can. And I was able to do that. I wouldn't call it a roaring success. I think it's hard for the first book to blow up for most people. It's like catching lightning in a bottle, or you're like a unicorn if that happens. So I would say don't expect that to happen. Don't put all your eggs in the first book's basket, because you're going to need more. That's why writing in series and stuff like that is so important. But yeah, getting it out was just exciting, nerve-wracking, just so many emotions at once. And then it's like, but it helps when you finally hit publish. It helps, like you feel established, like I did it, I'm a published author, and then you kind of work on the next thing, the next book, the marketing, like whatever it is. But yeah, dude, it was like a feeling like nothing else. It was a freaking crazy ride.
Yeah, I remember holding the first physical paperback that I had in my hands and having that moment of like, just sort of admiration, and then looking at the book and going, well, what next?
That's right.
Yeah, you're like, oh no, I've got to do it all over again. But that is just the journey, and like you say, it's, you know, you get on and you crack on with the next book. So how did it come about you winning the gold for military thrillers in the 2022 Global Books Awards for self-publishing?
Yeah,
and congratulations on that.
Book. Oh, thank you. Yeah. I'm thinking I was the only book in the category, is how it happened. I wasn't. No, I saw at least 2 other books in there. So I don't know. I remember getting an email from Ray Brim, and he had like a link to the Global Publishing Book Awards for self-publishers. And I was like, oh, that looks interesting. So I clicked on it. It was like, you basically pay like a fee, and it was like, put your book in here to get nominated for whatever category your book is in. And then we'll run the awards. Well, I don't know how they pick or choose it. Like, I don't know. But then I almost kind of forgot about it. And then I got an email, and I was like, oh, I forgot about this. And I read it. I was like, is this spam? I don't know if this is real. Like, and then I went and checked out the page, and I saw it. I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they picked my book. Like, how bad did those other books suck? And how many? I'm kidding, but it's like, it was super cool. I never would have imagined that. And I did it just to kind of do it, never thinking it was going to win. But yeah, it was super cool to get that email from that company.
Yeah, it must be a really strange moment having that come through and just being like, there's something in this. And I will say, you know, having looked through your website and looked through, you know, your book covers and some of the content and things, that you actually seem to have paid attention to Mark Dawson's course, because everything looks professional, everything looks sort of really above board, and you wouldn't sort of have guessed, you know, that it's all self-published, which is one thing that I'm really keen to impart on the people that I coach, is that, you know, there shouldn't be any difference between your book and a traditionally published book. It should just be a joyful experience for the reader. But yeah, man, congratulations. That's huge. Thanks. And how has that done anything for your career in terms of selling more books? How has that moved you forward?
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't really harnessed the power of it yet to try to push things forward. And I've added it to like anywhere you can find me. Obviously, you want that like social proof and stuff like that. And you know, my mom and dad told me good job. That meant a lot. And my wife and stuff like that.
Little pat on the head.
Yeah, I think it's cool just to be able to see that. And it's like, when I think back to starting this journey, and I was like, before I ever even had the first word written to now, and I see that, it's just like, man, if I can do it, and I'm like the biggest idiot I know, like if I'm able to pull it off, dude, anybody can. So yeah, I don't know. It was cool. I can't wait to kind of use it to really, in my marketing, to use that to see what kind of results I can get from it. But yeah, we'll see about that.
And you're, as far as I understand it, full-time in this author business. So how did that come about being, and what does that look like a typical day for Philip Duncan as a full-time author?
Yeah, so that came about me hating my job I was at. And I remember I was just telling my wife this 2 days ago, and I was like, or no, my best friend, I saw him yesterday and we went out to lunch. I was like, yeah, I remember at my desk walking down the hallway, and it was like something stopped me. It was the weirdest thing. Like something stopped me in my tracks and was like, you have to leave, get the heck out of here, and start doing something for your life and your dreams and your goals. And I was like, oh man, that's crazy. And then like 30 minutes later, I went to my boss and I was like, hey bro, I'm out 2 weeks. I can't do it. Like, I can't do this anymore. Like, I got to go pursue this. And then sold my house, moved my wife and 2 kids in with mom, which is where I am right now. So I could use that money to start my business, and then launched my first virtual summit back in March, which gave me the foundation for my business. And I wouldn't have been able to do that without virtual summits. So now my day consists of getting up, doing my morning routine, like reading and devotion, meditation, coffee. And then I go to the gym, and then I come back, I spend some time with my kids since they're up at the freaking crack of dawn anyways. Yeah. And then I have my schedules blocked out for, I'm working on a couple projects right now. So I focus a couple hours on a project, take a short mental break, lunch, focus a couple hours on a project. And then I'll write in between those two, or I'll write before. And then I kind of, I'll do my email in there between two. But I make sure that each block is focused on one thing, because I'm very much somebody who gets pulled away to too many different things, like a lot of people. Mm-hmm. So now I know if I focus block by or hour by hour what I'm doing, I can get more things done. So it's a little bit of writing, but it's mostly business stuff now, because that's what I want to push forward.
Yeah. That's a big move. I really, really admire having that push just to be like, I'm out, bye. And then, to shift and to change your life to adapt to a situation in which you can, as far as obviously I know from this conversation, sustainably finance yourself and to move towards making this a reality for yourself. I know a lot of people who get caught up in the rigmarole of the mortgage and the car and everything else. And then the idea of shrinking and downsizing and moving and shifting things to pursue that dream. I mean, there's no lie, it's obviously a massive shift and a massive thing to manage, but so many people don't take that initiative to pursue the thing that they say that they want more than anything else in the world. What was that conversation like with your wife, and how did you navigate that? Because I can imagine that would have been quite interesting to be a fly on the wall for.
It was an interesting conversation, and it's actually it's an ongoing conversation still, okay, even 7 months later. But, to be completely honest, before I quit my job, leading up to it, I remember July 13th of last year, 2021, I had something that shifted my life forever, and basically was the first stepping stone towards me leaving my job and pursuing this full time. So for, we can be honest on here, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. So for people who don't know me yet and don't follow me, and you're not on my list or something, I've shared this with some people, but July 13th of last year, I was actually, because of my job got me down. I think a lot of people can relate to this. I felt so beat down and like just unmotivated, worn out mentally, physically, emotionally. Like I had nothing left in the tank. I could not do it another day. Like rock bottom, 100% mental rock bottom. Did something that, just forewarning people, if you're at your mental rock bottom, do not drink alcohol. It's not it does not make things better. Okay. I don't drink normally, and I haven't in a long time, but I was so bad off. My wife was actually out of town at her parents' house a few hours away, and I was at home by myself. And I remember driving home from work one day, and I couldn't do it anymore. And I went and got alcohol, which I don't do. And about 4 hours later, I was arrested for a DUI. Huge deal here. Anywhere, not a great thing. Still dealing with it now. That was the first stepping stone for me, because I was like, if this is what my job and my life is doing to me right now, I'm going to end up getting myself killed. I let my family down, my wife, my kids, my parents, my friends. Like I could have hurt somebody. I could have killed somebody. Like I think about it every day. It's terrible. And I'm still dealing with it. But that was the first step towards me leaving my job and pursuing my dreams, because I realized I wasn't living my purpose, and my true calling wasn't being utilized, and I couldn't do it anymore. So I actually thankfully came out of that unscathed in terms of physical harm. Nobody got hurt. There was nobody else no accident, nothing. I got so lucky, by the grace of God. I got so lucky. But if it wasn't for that night, I tell people I'm grateful for that night, because that is basically the reason I'm here today. And if it wasn't for that, I think I would either still be in that job, or I would have done something much worse. So I didn't expect to bring that up, but
no, I genuinely appreciate you sharing that. I think one thing that I really try and dispel on this podcast is just the honest truth behind so much of this thing, because I get tired of hearing success, I get tired of hearing success stories. I love success stories.
I hate people that are successful.
I get really tired of hearing success stories without the background, without the color of, day-to-day life, with the, I just get up in the morning, I write for 3 hours, and then I'm done for the day, and I'll have a margarita on the beach. That's just not the reality for so many people. So many people have wives and children and all this other stuff going on. And I would genuinely share an equivalent of my story, were it not for present company, because I don't think that's now's the environment with a little one sat on the sofa. But for people interested, it will be in my latest nonfiction book, because we do have these fundamental moments that change us. And there was a quote, and I never remember who to attribute it to or where I heard it, but years ago, that I heard, that kind of shifted a lot of my thinking and led to a lot of the it was a catalyst of a lot of things in my life. And that was, true change only ever comes from inspiration or desperation. And so you're either incredibly inspired by something you've seen, something you've witnessed, that you're like, I need this, I want to do this. Or you have those down moments, those really rock bottom moments where you're like, I can't live like this, something bad's going to happen. And I think, you should be thankful for that experience, because that has led on to other things. I think sometimes we need those near misses to remind us of the fragility of life, and the stuff that we are missing out on because we are stuck in the dead-end job and just kind of going along. It's very easy to get sucked into the current and the stream of general life, and to forget that we are individuals, and we're that there are so many more choices out there. So knowing what you know now from that experience, what would you say to that person who is the quote nobody, who is just sat in the office and thinking like, I would love to write, but it's just not a thing that I can do? It. This is a story for other people to go out for. What would you say to that person?
I would just say, kindly, I can get kind of brutally honest because I'm a pretty direct person. So, it'd be like a kind way of saying, suck it up and do it anyways, or try, because the worst thing you can do is sit idle and do nothing. Because if you just put your dreams in the back burner and then you go to work every day, what you're doing is basically working your butt off to help somebody else achieve their dreams. So, and you don't get anything in return. They give you what? A paycheck? You're trading your time for money. How about do something for yourself? See if you can build a career out of this, and then go work for yourself and build your own dreams and goals. And it all starts with sitting your butt down at a computer and typing and start writing. If you've got a book inside you, it doesn't matter if it's fiction or nonfiction. Like, there's something inside you that you're wanting to do and you're already thinking about it, then your mind shift is already there. You just need to sit down and do it, because you don't want to have these big moments like I've had that have been pretty, serious issues, like with that DUI, or when I lost my older brother to suicide my freshman year of college. And, he was my best friend and my older brother. And it freaking changed everything in my life. And what that did for me was make me appreciate life and realize how short it is, and that we only have a finite amount of time on this earth. And you need to take advantage of the time you have, because time is unforgiving. It's going to pass regardless of what you do. So you might as well do something today that your future self is going to thank you for.
I'm just going to, that's it for a minute. Very eloquently.
Sorry.
No,
got a little intense there.
No, I love it. And it kind of, goes into stuff as well. We mentioned in the intro about your author coaching and the different things that you're doing. You mentioned a little bit earlier about your virtual summits, which is a bit of a strange segue from that stuff. But tell us about the virtual summits and how you're kind of going about making that happen. You had the title's blanking on me, the author powerhouse summit in March, was it? How did all that come into being?
Yeah. So I launched my first one back in March. It was, it's funny because I've retitled it now to the Powerhouse Authoring Summit. When I launched it the first time, it was the Powerhouse Fiction Summit. And the only reason I put fiction in it is because I wrote fiction, so I felt I needed to. But the reality is most of my speakers were nonfiction coaches, entrepreneurs, business owners, stuff like that. But virtual summits came to me a couple of years ago from Ray Brim and Paul Brody. And I remember when they first told me about it, I was like, This is the stupidest thing I ever heard. It doesn't, there is zero way this works the way you're telling me it works. It doesn't make sense. Like, no, I'm not doing it. Like, whatever. Thanks for the opportunity. Just, I brushed it off. A year later, somehow Ray comes back to me. I get back and Ray's like, hey, come do this. Done with you. Like 6 weeks of coaching for a virtual summit. And I was like, okay, that's a lot cheaper than the first option. It's interesting that this is coming back to me. Let me just try it out. And I did it and I was like, holy crap. And I saw all these big names and like these examples of what it's done for people's businesses. I was like, okay, I'm trying to get my business off the ground. And when all this was happening, mind you, I was still working. I was dealing with my legal troubles. We were trying to sell our house and I was trying to get this summit going. So it was like the most stressed I've ever been in my entire life. So I did like the first half of the summit at my old house. And then I finished up doing it here at my mom's house. And I mean, literally, it's been a massive game changer. And I think everybody should at least explore the option of doing their own virtual summit, because what it does for you is you connect with these people, like me reaching out to you before and interviewing you for my summit. It's like, dude, if I could reach 30 people like you and I'm doing the interview, not only does it feel like a cheat code that I'm getting to interview all these people and get all this information, then I get to put that out to people and they get to learn about it and hear it and get access to all this stuff from all these massive people. Don't care what I have to say. I'm doing it because of the people I'm interviewing. And I just think there's literally nothing out there like this, in my opinion. It's like, picture going to like a huge conference of, like, you just went to like a 4-day like horror writing conference. I don't remember what you said it was, but yeah. So imagine that, except it's virtual. You see all these people that are on a panel of speakers and experts you look up to and you know and you follow, except it's virtual. You do it from your home and you can access it anywhere. So it's absolutely like my number one business tool right now and what I focus a lot of my time on.
It's definitely got my my wheel spinning since speaking to you about it last time, a couple of weeks back. But what are the big benefits of it? So from either side, from someone attending versus someone looking at running a virtual summit, what are the kind of pros of going down that path?
Yeah. So if you're attending a virtual summit, what that'll do, it just depends on what the topic of the virtual summit is. But like, for example, like for somebody, if somebody was going to attend my Powerhouse Authoring Summit when I launch it, they would, basically what you're doing is getting access to 30 or more interviews. Like it's almost like doing these individual podcasts and then you put them into this virtual summit vault for people to access. You're going to learn and get access to all these experts and influencers in marketing, crafting, writing, self-publishing, book covers, editing, building a business, like anything you could imagine that goes into self-publishing and getting your career started off the ground, scaling, whatever it is literally going to be all in one place. And then people who purchase the premium pass, a lot of my speakers offer bonuses, and that can be accessed through the premium pass. So you'll get all this courses, coupons, information, like whatever it is. And it's just for such a tiny price. And I know price is subjective, but considering what you're getting for what you're paying, you look at it as an investment. I always tell people who don't want to pay for something for their business, I say, okay, don't think about it as paying. Think about it as you're taking this money from here and you're investing it, right, into your business in the future. So it will pay huge dividends down the road.
100%.
So, yeah, so that's what, and I'm always so willing to drop money as an investment into something that I think is going to move my business forward. No brainer if I find something that I think is worth it. And I think virtual summits can be that for a lot of people because it's actually not that expensive. And it's also free to attend if you don't want the premium pass. But I won't get into all the details. But yeah, that's the benefits of attending. Now, the benefits of hosting, which this will get your interest because I think you'd be somebody perfect for it because you already interview people, is the three big things that it does. It does more than this, but the three big things that we say it does is lead generation, income, and authority. So what it does is, just to give you an example, like a couple of examples, Ray Brim's first summit, when he first launched his summit, his business that he was running by himself, or his, entrepreneurship business, he was about to have to go back to work to a 9-to-5. Like he thought he was going to have to go back into the working world. Discovered virtual summits, launched his first virtual summit. From the time he launched his first summit, a year later, based on the relationships he made with influencers, the premium pass sales that he made, and his email list that he grew, he made $240,000 off of his one summit in 1 year. Now, somebody like Brian Burney, who actually I'm friends with now, he's a marketing expert. A lot of people probably know who he is. He just ran his third summit. His first summit, this is crazy. People are going to think this doesn't make any sense, but I'm telling you, it's insane. His first summit, 3,500 new emails and about $25,000 to $30,000 in premium pass sales. So that's in 1 week. That's in 1 week. His second summit, he doubled his list, 7,000 emails and like 50 to 60, if not more, $1,000 in premium pass sales. And then he just ran his third summit, added another $5,000 or $6,000 or another 5,000 or 6,000 leads at another $25,000, $30,000. So if you take all his 3 summits, he's put about 16,000 new. Who wouldn't want 16,000 new emails, right? Like legit warm or hot lead emails, right? And people are going to unsubscribe. That's fine. But 16,000, I mean, come on. And over $100,000 in revenue from just premium pass sales. And that doesn't even include business relationships you make, or if you have a core offer. Here's another big one, big benefit. Let's say you have a core offer. So for you, you have a coaching program, right? Let's say you're getting ready to launch your program. Let's say you're going to launch your program a month after, or a week after you launch your summit. You would, at the end of the summit, drive people to your coaching program because they've seen you for a whole week. Your authority is up. Your influence is as high as it's ever been, your credibility, and you just drive people to your core offer, and it works like magic. And it's like, dude, I could talk about this all day. And I know it sounds crazy to people who don't understand it. And I'm not pitching anybody, but I'm just telling you, like, it's insane. It really is.
I think it's always kind of, as I mentioned earlier on here, like the danger of talking about this kind of stuff is it does feel pitchy, but it's not pitchy. Like if it's true. And, you know, I've been on quite a few different virtual summits, and I've seen kind of that environment. And it is one of those things where I'm like, you know, the brain cogs are turning about the possibilities of stuff to do with that. But just for my listeners, why don't you sort of share some of the guests that you had on your previous summit, just to give an example of some of the names, because I know that people who listen to this will recognize a few of them.
Okay, so
just to put you on the spot.
First summit, no spot. So I had people like Ray Brim, Evan Gao, who's the creator of Story Origin, Honore Corder, who's a TEDx speaker and co-author of the Miracle Morning series, and she's got like 50 plus books. So she's a freaking powerhouse. Derek Depker, who I think everybody knows in the self-publishing space. Brian Burney, who I just mentioned, a marketing expert. Matt Stone from 100 Covers, the creator of 100 Covers. I had him on there. He's a super awesome guy. Who were some other people I had on the first one? Because I had 15. I mean, just Kimberly Grabas or Grabas, however you say her name. She's got a massive self-publishing website and like business behind her. She was such a joy to talk to. Karen Ferreira, massive in the children's book industry. She's like the go-to. I had her on, love her to death. And then now I'm adding 15 new people like you and Mark Recklow and Jesse Krieger and Kevin Tumlison, you know, just all the Alexa Bigworth, like all these massive people who for some reason agree to talk to me. I don't know why, but it's like, imagine where you're sitting right now. If you're listening to this and you think you're a nobody, you have nothing to offer. Think about those names I just mentioned, like me talking to you and then all these other people. Imagine yourself being able to interview these people, and then you put it out to the world. What that does is people now look at you as what? An expert, like you know what the heck you're talking about. Even if you don't, you're interviewing these people, so you look like the expert. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah. What you're talking about there is kind of the magic formula for, I think, just like success generally in terms of networking things. Because when I first started podcasting, way back in 2016, and I had a podcast with Luke Condor, the Story Studio, and we started that just talking to each other. And it was just us two talking about our journey into writing, into self-publishing. And then within a few weeks, we had like Joanna Penn on there and Jay Thorne and all these names of these people that I just massively respected. And it was just as easy as reaching out and going, hey, do you want to come on the podcast? And that was, you know, for them, it's no money, but, you know, coming onto like a virtual summit, of course, they're going to earn something back from this as well. But the magic really is that authors and creatives love to talk about themselves, and they love to talk about the creative process. So like, when people kind of ask how I get into podcasting, and just as you've demonstrated, then there is no real secret. It's just start and do and make happen. And that's kind of the magic of this business.
Yeah, it's crazy. And you're right. Like, one cool thing that's different from podcasts and virtual summits is, yeah, you're not going to earn anything if you're a guest on a podcast, but a virtual summit, most people, like the way I do it, is you become an affiliate, and anybody that purchases like a premium pass from your list, you'll get 50% commission. So you can earn a lot of money literally just to be a speaker and then put it out to your list. And you're going to email your list anyways, and you're just putting like a quick little link in there to be like, hey, go check out my interview with so-and-so on this summit. We talked about this. Go check it out. If you want the premium pass, here it is. And it's like, bam, 50% commission like that. Plus, people get to see you, and then they can go check out your offers and stuff like that. So yeah, it's incredible to be interviewer, interviewee, or attendee. So
on the assumption, just because this is similar to my journey, I don't know if it's the same with yours, but how have you dealt with imposter syndrome along the way, if that has popped up with you? Because I know that when it came around to me really stepping out and becoming much more front and center and authority in the stuff that I'm doing, there was certainly a really sort of wobbly period of trying to come to terms with that kind of like, well, I'm a nobody, like I'm going to get found out, all that kind of stuff. Is that something that you've had to deal with as well?
100%. I think most people have that issue. It's like that mental block of you're not good enough, you don't know enough, you haven't done enough, you're not like, I don't have 20 books out and whatever. It's like, but the reality is, like, you've done something that somebody else hasn't done, and there's somebody looking to you for help or as a role model because you've done something. That makes you an expert. Like, there's no like, as long as you're not like trying to push something to people that doesn't make sense, or like you're lying about something to get them to buy something, like you literally are being an imposter and misleading, like that's one thing. But if you're like genuinely trying to help, or you're genuinely trying to become a success or a self-published author or stuff like that, like I get that's an issue. I mean, honestly, sometimes like when I'm interviewing people or people agree to be on my summit, like I'm like, I'm not worthy. Like, am I really worthy enough to like interview these people? And I'm like, they're just people. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, we're just talking. So then it's like, I turn it off. I'm like, it doesn't matter. They agreed to, I don't care. But yeah, it's just, you definitely have something, or you've done something that somebody else hasn't done, or they won't. So that automatically makes you an expert.
And integrity, as you mentioned, is huge. It's much easier to, for want of a better word, sell something that is truthful, that you believe in, as opposed to trying to peddle something that's going to trick and it just isn't worth what you're trying to push. We are coming up to the end of the interview. I have sort of two more questions. One of them is from me, and one of them is from someone else, which I'll go into in a minute. I'm not trying to trick you or trap you. I realize how that sounds. But before we go into that final question myself, one thing I have noticed is that since our last interview where you interviewed me, we have swapped the hats and hair situation. It was you with a hat last time.
The only reason I'm not wearing a hat right now is because I just got a haircut.
Hey, when I showing it off.
Yeah, but I love my hat. You're right. I usually wear my white backwards Adidas hat because I love my hat. I wear it all the time.
Yeah. Okay, so my final question to you is, why do you, Philip Duncan, write?
Yeah, I guess the simple answer would be because it's what I love to do. And I think it's part of what my calling is. Like, I think I have other callings, like helping people and coaching and stuff like that. But when it really kind of comes down to it and boil it down, simplicity, it's because I love to write, and it gets me excited, and it makes me feel like I'm living my true purpose, which is really all you can ask for. It's like, even if you don't make all the money in the world and you don't get to go buy this bungalow on the water or whatever it is, and you private jet, it's like, are you waking up, living your purpose, being able to do something, let's say full time, let's say you're doing it full time, like being able to do something that you truly are passionate about and love and want to do. I mean, what else could I ask for?
Beautiful. Love that. Okay, so as plugged last week on the podcast, I've unabashedly stolen a section for this podcast from a podcast called The Diary of a CEO, in which last week's guest poses a question for next week's guest. So last week I had Ella Barnard on the show, and Ella has left a question for you, and then afterwards we'll get you to write a question for next week's guest, if that's okay.
Okay, yeah.
Perfect. Sure. So the question for you is, People often ask, what is the biggest challenge you've experienced while becoming an author? I'd like to know, what is the most amazing experience you've had since becoming an author?
That could be a couple of things, really.
Let's hear them.
So definitely getting that email, becoming an award-winning author, huge, that put me over the roof, man, to the moon. Hitting #1 on a lot of categories inside Amazon's US and UK store to be able to call myself a best-selling author, that was really big for me too. And then honestly, being able to do this virtual summit, because it is a part of my authoring career. Like, it's not traditional towards my book, but because I'm building my career around my authoring, like those two plus being able to do this and now implement this into my business, are those three together are like make everything that I've done up to this point, all the money I've invested, all the time I've invested, the move, the crazy life changes, like it makes it all worth it. And, I wouldn't change any of it.
Perfect. I love that. And we'll get you to do your question once we've wrapped up recording.
Okay.
But just for my listeners, where can they find out about yourself and all that you're working on?
Yeah. So you go to a couple of places. You can go check out my website, is just, www.philipsduncan.com. That's my author website. You'll see my books in there and my bio and stuff like that. And then you can also go to virtualsummitcoaching.com. If you're interested in learning more about virtual summits, you can head over there as well. And then you can always reach me at my email, which is just philip@philipsduncan.com. I respond to all my emails pretty quickly. So questions, anything you have, I'm always open to engaging with my audience or anybody. So feel free to shoot me something.
Beautiful. Love that. And yeah, I'll put all those links in the show notes, but a massive thank you for joining me on the show today, Philip.
Yeah, man. Thanks. That was a lot of fun.
No worries. And a massive thank you to you, the listeners, for tuning in. And as always, if you're looking to level up your writing and activate your author career, head on over to activatedauthors.com to find out all about our community, our resources, and everything else that we've got going on. One more time from myself and from Philip, goodbye, and I will see you next week.
Activate your energy.